Buckle up, everybody, because today we're time traveling.
Yeah.
From ancient Egypt right into the metaverse.
Sounds exciting. Where are we headed?
Straight into the brain of Dan Thomas. This guy's seen it all. Smartphones to Web3.
Oh, yeah, I listened to that interview. It was packed with insights.
Total goldmine. So you don't see Egyptology and cutting-edge tech on the same resume every day, right?
Yeah.
Dan's background in ancient Egyptian linguistics, it's not your typical tech origin story.
Right, it's like something out of a movie. But it actually speaks to how he approaches tech.
Go on.
He sees deciphering these ancient languages, like understanding like the architecture of programming languages. It's like two sides of the same coin for him.
So instead of tombs, he's digging into the hidden structures of language itself.
Exactly. He even said that dealing with hieroglyphics, which are different than spoken language, actually changed how he thinks about programming.
Okay, that's next level thinking.
Yeah.
But how does that actually play out in his tech work? Like, give me an example.
So he was saying that decoding all those ancient texts made him really good at spotting patterns, seeing the forest for the trees, even in really complex code.
So it's not just about the code, it's the meaning behind it. Kind of like how a single hieroglyph can represent a whole idea.
Exactly. And this perspective becomes super relevant when you think about his 16 years in telecom during the rise of smartphones.
16 years? That's like a century in tech years. He must have some stories.
Oh, he's got stories. He saw it all. The ups, the downs, brands that were massive one day and gone the next. Sony Ericsson, Siemens, BlackBerry, remember them?
BlackBerry. It's crazy how fast they fell. They had all but missed the touchscreen wave.
And that's Dan's point. He sees the same thing happening now with blockchain. The booms, the busts. You have to adapt or die. Hype only gets you so far. You need real value.
Totally. Remember the NFT craze? Talk about a wild ride.
Yeah, and how many panned out? Dan's saying that to last in this industry, you need more than buzzwords. You need to solve real problems. Otherwise, you're just a fad. Here today, gone tomorrow.
And that leads us to something that's been all over the news. Self-custody. This whole Samurai case with the alleged money laundering has thrown fuel on the fire about the future of self-custody, especially now with everyone talking about regulating crypto.
It's this clash of ideologies that's so fascinating. You have the self-custody folks saying, hey, this is about individual control, your money, your rules.
Well, it makes sense.
Right. But the closer crypto gets to mainstream, the more regulators are going to come knocking, especially if they see it as a haven for criminal activity.
It's like this tug of war between this decentralized tech and the old centralized systems.
And that tension's not going away. It's at the very heart of what blockchain and crypto are all about, challenging the powers that be. But there's always a trade-off. If you want mass adoption, then playing by some rules, even if it means compromising on some initial principles, it might be the only way.
So it's not just about the tech, it's about fitting into the real world.
Precisely. And this whole thing about navigating tech and its impact on people, that's a recurring theme. It's never just about the ones and zeros, it's about us. The ethical stuff, the unintended consequences, the whole shebang.
And speaking of unintended consequences, we've got to talk about AI. ChatGPT, Pi, everyone's talking about them. The potential is huge, but so are the risks.
It's like we're living in a sci-fi movie, but it's real life.
Exhilarating and a little scary, right? Like, these tools could revolutionize everything.
Right.
But are we creating something we don't fully understand?
It's a good question, and Dan makes a really important point that gets lost in all the hype. We can't treat AI like it's human. We can't give it human-like feelings or motivations. It's easy to get caught up in the moment, but at the end of the day, it's still just an algorithm.
I get that, but when something like Pi can hold a conversation like a real person...
I know, it's easy to think, is this thing actually thinking? And that's where things get really interesting, ethically speaking. When you blur the lines between human and machine, it raises all sorts of questions about manipulation and deception. Can AI change how we see reality itself?
It's like that movie Ex Machina, where you start to question your own sanity. Am I really talking to a machine, or is it something more?
Right. And AI is only going to get more integrated into our lives. Recommendations, augmented reality, we have to be aware of the potential downsides. Who's controlling the algorithms? What biases do they have? How are they shaping our thoughts and actions?
Yeah, those are the questions that keep me up at night. It's both exciting and terrifying.
Exactly. And that brings us back to Dan's point about needing a healthy dose of skepticism with all this new tech. We can't just embrace everything blindly. We have to ask the tough questions. What are the downsides? Who benefits? Are the trade-offs worth it?
Don't be blinded by the shiny new object, right?
Exactly. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to tech. And speaking of navigating the tech world, Dan had some really interesting things to say about personal branding, specifically on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Really? Why not something flashier?
He sees LinkedIn as the platform for tech people, especially those who aren't into the constant noise and self-promotion you find elsewhere.
So it's about showcasing your expertise without being salesy.
Yeah, it's about highlighting your niche but not pigeonholing yourself, which is super important in tech where things change so fast.
And he actually uses his own LinkedIn to walk the walk, right? I remember him saying he used an NFT as his profile picture early on. That was a pretty bold move.
He's not afraid to experiment, to stand out. He saw it as a way to signal that he was on the cutting edge and understood personal branding.
Which a lot of tech people don't, right? They're so focused on the tech, they forget it's people making the decisions.
Exactly. Tech doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's all about human connection and building trust. It's kind of like his linguistics background gave him this unique insight into how to communicate in this digital age.
It's all connected. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the Isle of Man. You found some really interesting data on how businesses there view cryptocurrency. Things have really changed, haven't they? Big time. In 2022, there was a ton of resistance. Something like 70% of businesses wanted nothing to do with cryptocurrency. Now, that's down to 35%.
That's a massive change in such a short time. What's causing it?
It's a few things. More media coverage has definitely helped. User-friendly platforms make it easier to get involved. And honestly, I think some businesses are looking for alternatives after the economic uncertainty of the past few years. It's like they're looking past the hype and seeing the real-world potential.
Exactly. Especially in places like the Isle of Man, which has been exploring blockchain and fintech for a while now.
Their recent consultation on cryptocurrency regulation is a great example. There are 5 very different options on the table. It'll be really interesting to see which way they go.
And this ties into Dan's point about attracting companies and talent to the island. It's not enough to just have crypto-friendly rules. You have to understand what these digital nomads and remote workers want.
And he's not convinced that tax breaks or a physical office are going to cut it.
Right. These people can work from anywhere. The Isle of Man needs to offer something more, something that truly speaks to them.
So they need to find their niche,
Yeah.
figure out what makes them special, kind of like with personal branding, right?
Exactly. It's about standing out. What makes the Isle of Man different? What can they offer that nobody else can?
Those are the million-dollar questions.
Yeah.
And the answers are going to determine their success in this new world of decentralized everything.
They need a completely new way of thinking about economic development, one that embraces the opportunities and the challenges of this digital age.
And that means being choosy. All right. It's not just about attracting any company. It's about finding the ones that share the island's values, companies that will contribute and build up the Isle of Man's reputation.
And to do that, they need someone like Dan, who really gets this world, who's not afraid to challenge the status quo. Because attracting the best in fields like AI and blockchain, that takes more than just money.
What else?
It's about the whole package work-life balance, a sense of community, opportunities for growth, things that make people want to stay.
And that's something the Isle of Man has in spades. They've got that strong community, the natural beauty, an amazing quality of life. Maybe those are the things that will attract this new wave of tech talent after all.
It's about creating a place where people want to build a life, not just a career.
It's about playing the long game.
Exactly. And speaking of the long game, we can't forget about Dan's thoughts on Bitcoin. It's about building a sustainable ecosystem, not just chasing the latest shiny object, you know?
Right, building something with lasting value.
Exactly.
Which brings us back to Dan's perspective on Bitcoin. He's clearly passionate about it. Would you say he's a Bitcoin maximalist? He seems to believe it's the only cryptocurrency that will truly stand the test of time.
He makes a compelling argument. I mean, think about it. While many other cryptocurrencies are intrinsically linked to specific companies or individuals, Bitcoin stands alone. Satoshi Nakamoto's decision to remain anonymous, to step back from their creation, it gave Bitcoin a level of autonomy and resilience that's almost unheard of.
It's bigger than any one person or entity, which is the whole point of decentralization, right? But that also makes it harder to control, to regulate, to fit into existing power structures.
Precisely. It's both its greatest strength and its biggest challenge. It challenges our traditional understanding of how a financial system should operate.
He's not wrong when he talks about its resilience. Bitcoin has been declared dead more times than I can count. Yet here it is, not just surviving, but thriving.
It's a testament to the power of a decentralized network, driven by a shared belief in its underlying principles. It's a fascinating case study in how technology can disrupt and reshape our understanding of value. trust, and even governance.
It's a digital revolution, unfolding block by block, right before our eyes.
And like any revolution, its ultimate success is something we can't predict with certainty. But one thing is undeniable. Bitcoin has sparked a movement, ignited a global conversation about the future of finance, and its impact will continue to be felt for decades to come.
Wow, what a deep dive. We've covered an incredible amount of ground, from ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics to the potential of AI to reshape our world. One of the things that really struck me is how the past seems to be rhyming with the present.
How so?
Well, the rapid rise and fall of tech companies today feels eerily similar to what Dan described witnessing during the smartphone boom. It's a reminder that even in the fast-paced world of technology, some patterns repeat themselves.
It speaks to the importance of looking beyond the hype cycle, of recognizing the fundamental drivers of innovation and adoption. As Dan emphasized, a critical eye, a focus on real-world value, and a commitment to lifelong learning are essential for navigating this ever-evolving landscape.
Absolutely. We can't just be passive bystanders caught up in the whirlwind of technological advancement. We need to be active participants, questioning, exploring, and shaping the future we want to see. So to our listener, as you delve deeper into the exciting world of blockchain and emerging technology, remember Dan's wisdom. Approach new technologies with a healthy dose of skepticism. Always ask yourself, what problem is this technology truly solving? And how could it impact my life, both positively and negatively? Keep those questions at the forefront of your mind, and you'll be well equipped to navigate the complexities and opportunities of this digital revolution. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. Until next time.